We'll see if it lives up to the hype. Why am I the only one here? One of the things that you'll find as we go through our report this morning, just a couple of things. One, we're not going to walk you through chronologically. A lot of the things we're going to share are going to be out of order, and so if you are one of those people that likes to follow things in order, you're going to be very confused, and I'm sorry, that's okay. You can come talk to us afterwards, and we'll try to put things in order for you. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to try to move through a whole lot of things very quickly. So you saw some pictures before the service. We're going to run those again after the service. You won't see those pictures again. Those are pictures we rejected from the presentation. But every picture has a story or two in there. And so if you want to hear more stories, let us know. We'd be happy to share those with you. One of the things we did on our trip is each day we had a different individual on the team share a devotion with us, some scripture, something like that, and it was interesting to see how each day those things fit with the things that were going on that day. And one of the things as we started the trip, I started off, I shared with them Ezekiel chapter 1, where it talks about in the 13th year of the 4th month, the 5th day of the month, as I was among the exiles by the Kibar Canal, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, the word of the Lord came to Ezekiel the priest, son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans. And it's interesting that God had to take him out of his place and put him somewhere else in order to be able to hear from God. And I challenge them to be looking for where is God speaking to you as we are out of our place in Honduras. And then I went on and I began to share with them the rest of chapter 1 where Ezekiel sees God. And what's interesting in there is he gets this vision of God, but he comes away, and I counted this up this morning, 21 times he uses the word, well, it was like this, or the likeness was like this, and another 23 times he uses, it appeared like this, or it looked a little bit like that, and a few times he uses, well, it was kind of like, it was as if, and I think you're going to hear a lot of that this morning, that as much as we try to share with you what this trip was like, unless you were there, you can't quite fully get it, right? So you're going to hear a lot of, well, it was kind of like this, but not really like that, and it was sort of like this. And so if you're not completely confused and have more questions by the end than at the beginning, then we haven't done our job. So with all of that, we went back to the same camp that we were at in, let's see, why am I not clicking? There we go. Oh, now we're going. There we go. So here we are. We went back to the same place we were at in 2012, but it looked quite a bit different. So, Chris, you want to share a little bit about camp?
Well, we were really surprised at all of the work that had been done on the camp. This building was just a gray building when we went 4 years ago, and they painted it and did things inside, spruced it up. It looked so much different. They also, the dorms, there's a boys' dorm building and a girls' dorm building, and they did quite a bit to those on the outside. And then they added things like a beautiful fountain and an amphitheater, and the house that we had worked on, which was just being built when we were there, they had finished it, and we actually stayed in that house. So that was a surprise. And the front porch that we had laid the tile, it was still there and looking great. And so it really was a nice thing to be able to see that some of the things we had touched.
So what do you think of when you see that podium? Some people said it looks like
a nose.
A nose. Other thoughts were
A butt. It's
a butt, or
A pregnant lady's belly.
a pregnant lady. I was thinking Dr. Seuss. I don't know. Those are just some gazebos that were there, and they've got a kind of a courtyard thing. They've got some signs, and
You probably can't see it, but the one on top, some of their signs are in English, and some of their signs
Some of the signs that they made to put up around the camp are in English, and some of the some of the signs are in Spanish. So I thought that was interesting because we were in Honduras. You would have thought it was all Spanish, but it was not. These are just the rooms. This is the really nice place we stayed. That fish. Oh, Andy, I'll let you talk about the fish.
This is the fish that we did that last time we were there, and so it was kind of fun to see the final product and that it's still there and exists.
I don't know if it's me or not, but when we got there, this is what our beds looked like. It had a nice fresh pillowcase, nice sheets, and a little goodie bag, just like we were at the Hilton. Came in and we got a little goodie bag, and that was all filled with Mexican or Honduras, all filled with Honduras treats and things that were from Honduras, which was nice.
And I discovered the Honduran hot sauce. Very good. Those hot sauces.
The other nice thing that we
Alec
found.
overindulged in the hot sauce a little bit too, but
The other nice thing we found was our cooks were still there, the same ones we had 4 years ago. Suyapa, she's the head cook, and she keeps everything going and makes wonderful food. And her helpers, Marta, her mother, was there every day. Marta's got to be upper 80s, we figured. Dharma, Lydia. And these ladies not only joyfully made our food and plenty of it, but they also joined in on the disc golf and some of the games they played. So we just really enjoyed our time with the cooks.
and we did not want for food while we were there.
It was really, really good food.
Well, it was, not only was it homemade every day, I don't know, did we have the picture of the fire? That's the picture we got. Okay, so this picture is actually food from the first restaurant we went right after the airport, but the rest of the food was absolutely homemade, fresh tortillas 3 times a day, right off the grill. Cannot even imagine, because it was very heavenly.
And even the time we had like pancakes, we had pancakes twice in the morning. Pineapple syrup, I just can't even describe how good this pineapple syrup was. I actually bought a pineapple. I'm going to try it, but I'm not thinking I'm going to be able to duplicate it. But it was good. And then like an apple jelly, homemade apple jelly to go on the pancakes the other day. It was all wonderful food.
And I am not a coffee drinker, but I drank coffee every single day we were in Honduras because it was that good. But I had to put like 6 spoons of sugar and a whole bunch of creamer, but...
It's progress.
So we had 4th of July in Honduras, and it was probably one of the best 4th of Julys I've had, and it wasn't in the U.S. So Michelle bought a whole bunch of fireworks, so that was fun. It's kind of nice when you can control the fireworks you have. It's neat. And we also... Okay, maybe it wasn't very controlled, but then also the cooks prepared burgers for us. No, hot dogs. Burgers were later. But we cooked our own hot dogs, and we had toasted hot dog buns, and they had butter on them. It was really good. We also had s'mores, and they have these things in Honduras called chiquis. It's basically a graham cracker, and the bottom of it has chocolate on it. So it's the perfect cracker for s'mores because you don't have to worry about putting in the chocolate. All right, pets. So there were lots of dogs at the camp. They were awesome. There was Ranger and Mustasha, which interesting story about Mustasha. Yeah, it's a terrier, so terriers have mustaches. So I wanted to call it Mustache, but I thought it was a girl, so I called it Mustasha. But I figured out the last day that it's a guy. So, yep. And there were also lizards there, which was a lot of fun. And there were toads, and there was also an iguana, but we didn't get to see it. Oh, and El Scorpiondo. Are we going to talk about El Scorpiondo later? Okay. Later, yeah.
Okay. So one of the reasons we were there, Wes, you want to tell us what we got a picture of here?
So I think Bethany and Ben came home from one of their weekly team meetings and said, guess what we get to do? Install a disc golf course. And if you don't know, every Monday I go to Disc Golf Anonymous and seek help. And so I was pretty jealous, and I thought, what can we do as the league to help them out? And so some of you have heard, I told Andy, I says, I tell you what, I'll promise you 50 discs. And I thought that was a pretty big feat, to get 50 discs. And I went to the league, and I says, guys, I promised him 75 discs. You have to tell him that because, we're shooting for 50. And they says, yeah, okay, we can do that. And at the end of the first week, I had 3 weeks. At the end of the first week, I only had 14 discs. And I went, man, I might go into my stash here and have to donate a lot of discs because I promised Andy 50. And 10 of those came in the mail from one person. So that tells you kind of where we were. But everybody was kind of gathering up their discs, getting ready for what I later found out was this huge delivery. And so the discs start rolling in second week and the third week. And I kept texting Andy, and I go, Andy, we passed the 50 disc. Can you take 75? And he says, yeah. I says, Andy, we passed 75. Can you take 100? Yeah. I think at 160, he just says, bring all you want. And so we broke the 200 disc mark at one point. And so 200 discs went to, that was really cool. Really cool. I still wish I was there to help get to install the disc golf course and play the course, but at least I got to contribute.
So we had some help putting in the disc golf course.
Oh, so we had lots of different groups that we got to interact with because of the disc golf course. And this first group here is a group of Nicaraguans who actually created the discs. They fabricated the discs. If you see in the blue shirt up there, and then with the white T-shirt and the dark blue shirt, those are two Nicaraguan pastors. Pastor Martin with the blue striped one, and Pastor Nestor with the T-shirt with the blue. And then they had two young men with them, Jesus and Leonardo. And I think Jesus is the orange shirt, am I right? And Leonardo, we only saw them they were there for the first 24 hours. We were there approximately. They were finishing up the baskets. They made most of them, most of the basket parts they assembled in Nicaragua, and then they brought them over and they finished welding them and putting the chains on them and making the baskets. It's a ministry that the pastors do to help young men, and then there's other programs to help young women who have gotten into some trouble, and so they're helping them to learn a trade, and so they were doing welding with that trade. So that was that group. Then the other group that we worked with, and that's the group that's up there with us there, are Americans, and they're based out of Nicaragua. Jason is the one who is working on, he got a grant to put in some disc golf courses in Latin America, and he is doing most of his work in Nicaragua, but they were putting the second one in. So Jason was there, his nephew was there for 2 months, Ramon. They're from Menominee, Wisconsin originally. And then Diana and David, the couple that are there, Diana's a teacher, and so they have, and David is a graphic designer, so they're able to travel in the summer. So they were there for about 2 months also to help put in disc golf courses, and we had a great time with them. There's a lot to say about that particular group, and I know I have a limited amount of time, but I just want to say one quick thing. It was a positive interaction with Americans that you don't expect necessarily to have in Honduras. It was a chance to minister to them and to really learn a lot about them. So if you want to know more about that, we would love to tell you about that.
One of the neat things there, too, they were not believers. They were there to put in a disc golf course. And they had lots of questions about, well, who are you and why are you here? And the one night at dinner, Diana shared with me, well, we worked with a church group once before, and it wasn't a very good experience. This has been a lot different.
She was so measured with her words, because she's a very positive person, didn't want to say anything negative. And she said, the thing about your group is you're so inclusive. And I those words were just, it was well chosen. I think we did a lot, 8 meals with them, and interacted with them, and just, I really treasured the time with them.
So this was our final product, but to get here, there was a lot of steps.
Oh, is it me? Oh, well, if you can imagine a mountain, they had cut down some trees. They cut because there had been a pine beetle that had started to destroy the pine trees. And I don't know how big this camp is. Do you, Andy? How many acres? But it's definitely on the side of a mountain. And all the trees that they left cut, of course, were at the top of the mountain, and the burn pile was at the bottom of our spot. So I would guess it was a good 200 feet. We were pulling trees down to the burn pile. We got those off the course. We got all the brush. It's all overgrown, nothing but pine needles covering the ground. So we had to rake all that up in order to even find a path to know where our disc golf course was going.
Oh, the rocks, though, were at the bottom of the mountain, and you had to push
Yes.
them up to the top of the mountain.
Plenty of rock. All the rocks you would want.
So another thing we had to do was put in the tea basket, the baskets for everything. Honduras is not very, nice soil. So my motto for the whole, what was it, day and a half we were working on it, was I'm digging for character, because you dig down and you hit a root, and you're like, I'm going to be positive. Cut out the root. Dig down again, find a rock. I'm going to be positive. Beat on the rock for 3 hours. I'm going to be positive. But yeah, we had 9 tea baskets, and me and Ramon, Ramon's a monster. He beat on the rocks, and I was just like, oh, you can do that. That's fine. We put in 7 tea baskets. There was 6 holes, 9 baskets, 6 holes. One thing of disc shoes, like horseshoes. We had 2 baskets, so you could play horseshoes with discs. And then around 9, and then we had to dig a big hole and then put the thing in and then cement it. And it was a lot of work, but it was fun.
And you can see here in the top left picture, and actually all 3 pictures, our job next was to level the ground for the tee pads. Well, leveling the ground meant you had to use a pickaxe, a shovel, get down on your hands and knees, and it was really, really tough ground. And thank goodness for Ben and Andy digging these huge rocks out, and then we would get the ground level so that we could actually have a tee pad, and then Andy was hammering the boards in place for the frame of the tee pad. So it was really tough work.
Bethany, what's going on in the picture?
Oh, I was using this wedge to break apart these big planks of wood from the pine trees that they had cut down. And so we were getting the sides ready for the tee pad. So I was helping David and Diana saw the things and wedge them apart.
In Honduras, when your tool breaks, you call Ben.
Yeah, a lot of their tools, like if you went up to them, you could see them. They were nailed together and then like put all this wire in an intricate way and stuff like that. And one of our tools broke while we were working, and I had foolishly told Michelle that I could weld before we left, so she made me weld a couple tools together.
One more thing about the tea pad making is, so Andy and I were framing tea pads, and so Andy comes up to me and says, hey, I have a job for you. And I say, what is it? You can be my nail buddy. It's like, what does that include? And it's like, oh, I think you're capable of it. So being a nail buddy is standing on the log while Andy nails it in so that it doesn't move. Yep.
So here are the maps that we did. And me and David went around and drew out the maps for each hole. And then we went and Ben carried all these huge rocks that are probably as heavy as I am. And we carried them all over the place. And we painted on the rocks the map where there's trees and the basket and the routes. So Alec helped me paint for a little while. Carol helped paint. Ben helped paint. It was a group effort, but I spent a lot of time painting those rocks.
Eventually, it got built, and we got to play.
Apparently, I'm talking about playing disc golf. I didn't realize that. All right, so yeah, we had we got to play a lot when we were there. I played almost every morning before people got up. I don't sleep.
And what was the legend of Ben?
Yeah, so we went down with about 211 discs. There are about 205 now. I lost a disc in daylight. It was bad. On top of houses, went off into the distance. You just like, I'll get you later, but never did. But yeah, we played a lot. We played in the mornings. We played in the evenings. Before the Nicaraguan group left, we got to play some night golf, which I lost one disc, only one. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had the church over to play, and we taught them how to play. And
Who's the guy in the picture?
yeah, Renee. Renee's the guy. He's in charge of grounds and the camp in general, just keeping everything maintenance. This guy was a monster. Oh my word! Like, he picked up the disc. He was playing it the first time he played. He got a hole-in-one. I'm just like, I'm done. We're good. But it was really good. He really liked playing. He was teaching other people how to play throughout the week, and he was really into it, which was a blessing.
Yeah, the exciting thing is Renee is the camp director, and so if he buys into it, I think that bodes well for this getting used as we go forward. And then we got to teach some people how to play disc golf.
It was a fantastic time. On the Sunday night after we finished installing the course, I mean, we had just finished installing the course. A group from Michelle's church from Tegucigalpa came out to camp, and it was cool to see them arrive. It was like pickup truck after pickup truck after pickup truck full of people, and they fit a lot of people in a pickup truck. Let's just say that. We'll talk more about that probably later. But all in all, what did you guys say, about 60 people? Yeah. About 60 people came out. Yeah, she thought maybe we'd get 10.
Not in one truck.
Not all in one truck. Maybe 6. But it was a great time. What was great about it was a way to interact with people. Sometimes sports and activities are a good way to interact with people, and it was a terrific way to get to know people. We all kind of split up and were with different groups. There was always someone who spoke English and someone who knew how to play disc golf in each of the groups. Not all the time were they the same people. Most of the time they weren't. I had a group that was mostly a family, so it was like the grandpa and grandma and then several children and several of their grandkids, and we played. It was just a lot of fun, a lot of ways to interact with people, tease and stuff like that.
Most of our week was actually spent doing this, painting beds. They have room after room, bunk beds that needed to have a termite sealant put on it, and then 2 finishing coats on top of that. And in the one room, we moved one of the beds, and as I walked around the bed, I kid you not, there was about a 3-foot scorpion. It was at least 3 foot.
This big.
They saw it after it was dead, okay? Yeah. And for the record, I didn't kill it. I had
they
the
shrink up and
I had the very measured response to seeing the 3-foot scorpion.
Andy ran and screamed like a little girl.
Ran and screamed, and Dawn came and rescued me.
But a couple seconds before that, me and Chris Paul were working on a bed, and she goes, "What's that?" And I said, "It's a scorpion." And everything was done.
Even Renee, the camp director, said it was a grande scorpion. He did also shrug his shoulders and it's only one. But
We did see more than one, though.
so
Lots of cockroaches.
what's that? Of the scorpion? No, we didn't have any good pictures of the scorpiondo.
Too small.
So,
It was too small. Too small.
let's see. We also tried to get out of the room now and then, and we planted some. Oh yeah, we celebrated obviously because it took us a long time to do that. We planted some trees. Anybody want to talk about tree planting real quick? We planted trees.
Michelle, the missionary down there, was able to get a bunch of trees donated, but they were donated as seeds. And so Renee, the caretaker, he actually planted them in little sacks and grew them so that by the time we got there, they were about this tall, some of them. Some of them were really big and were going to grow into large trees. So they wanted us to plant these. We planted 75 trees. And with the help of Jose, who is a caretaker there, and Renee and some other guys, they dug the holes while we went and planted the 75 trees. It was a huge undertaking.
And Bethany?
So this was a pathway that we created. Michelle had a group of boys that she had known since she lived in Honduras, and she let them come and work sometimes. And so they were there for maybe 2 or 3 days. And so we were working on this path, so we had all the rocks lining it. And then the boys designed this pattern, so it's gravel and mulch alternating with spots in it. So that was exciting.
And after seeing Bethany, the boys worked really hard. I don't know what that was about. And Alec and I put some lights in.
Yeah, we had solar lights that were supposed to go on the tee pads for disc golf, for night golfing. But we kind of decided that nobody was really crazy enough to go night disc golfing. So we took them all out of the tee pads and decided to line the paths. And I guess that's really it. Solar lights aren't too exciting.
It looked nice at night when you were walking.
So we had a chance to go out to a school 3 days while we were there.
Schools, I loved being in a school. And schools are one of those things where a lot is different and a lot is the same. So in the schools, there was a 2-room schoolhouse that was first grade through 6th grade. So the younger ones were in one room and the older ones were in another room. And it was very primitive. But you see the projects and the bulletin boards, and they're all of things that you would expect to be in a school. There's kids that are misbehaving a little bit, and the teacher goes, "I'm going to talk to your mom." It's universal. All of that was in there. One of the things that were different was every morning when we came in, we got hugs all around from all of the kids. Every night when we left, we got hugs all around from all of the kids. The hardest part, I think, with the kids was not being able to speak the language. And I think that was the thing that was really struggling, because there's like those times in between activities where you're like, my teacher instinct sort of kicked in. Let's organize and do some things, but I can't tell anybody to do anything. So it was difficult to me. But we did have one time where Bethany and I had a little time filler, and we did a little follow the leader and taught them the chicken dance. And so then they taught us, we did head and shoulders, knees and toes, and other things like that. But we did do the chicken dance, so then they taught us. This is Bethany's turn.
Oh, I'm not gonna sing it, but the teacher had come over just because we were dancing around, and she wanted to dance with us too. And we were talking about the pollo. That's chicken in Spanish. So we're doing our chicken dance. And she was like, "We have one." And she got all the kids, and they were doing their chicken dance, which is totally different. But it was cute.
And Bethany had a cultural experience at the school.
I forgot to go to the bathroom when we were at the camp. And so we get to the school, and I'm like, I really need to go to the bathroom. And so I'm like looking around, and the teacher goes, "Over there." So I'm like, all right. I go over. It's like this little, you can see it up in the top corner. it's like this little teensy dark room. There's no lights, there's no electricity or anything. I go in, there's this bowl, just a little ceramic bowl, and that was the only thing in the room. So that was exciting.
She remembered to go at camp after that.
We sung some songs.
So yeah, we sung a lot of songs at camp. We did the one we did before we left, Yo Pongo Miso Hosanti. We did that one there. We did Suave Poquito, which is the one we did this morning, and a couple others. And it was pretty cool because obviously we don't speak the language, but we were able to communicate with the kids via song, because the first day we were dancing along and they're like, what are these gringos doing? They're just dancing in front of us. And then by the end of the day they were requesting, play Suave Poquito again, and all that fun stuff. It was great.
It was kind of funny because, like Mom said, it was very different at the school, but very much the same. Because when we were singing, there was definitely the opposite ends. There was the little kids who were just like, yay, singing. And there were like the older kids who were just like, I'm too cool for this. Like in the U.S.
By the end of the week, they were singing along kind of to themselves because they didn't want their friends to see, but they were all doing it. They were all into it.
We did crafts with the kids, and one of the things first we did was some beads on a bookmark. And we had a bookmark in Spanish, the verse, one for each day. Well, the first day, we put the beads out and let the kids put the beads on the bookmark and take it home with them. Well, it was such chaos that we decided we would do the bookmarks at our camp for the other 2 days. And so we sat one evening, which Andy termed it total insanity, putting beads on these little bookmarks. Beads are not Andy's thing. Then we did picture frames, took their picture. Susan took each child's picture, brought it back, printed them out, and then Dawn had made or Carol had made some frames out of popsicle sticks, and then we put the pictures in the frame for them. They liked those. And then the third day, we had cinch sacks that Dawn had gotten, and we wrote on the cinch sacks, but the stuff we wrote in was fabric paint.
Yeah. It was sort of we were learning as we were going with the crafts what we could do sort of with the language and all of that. So we decided that we were going to get all of them out, and Chris said, I think we should paint that, we should put the words on before, which was a really good idea, and we're really glad we did it. So we got them all done, except for they didn't really dry that well even overnight. Stuff didn't dry that well over there. Like you would see stuff hung out for several days in a row just because of the air and the thinner air up high and all of that. So we ended up hair drying them at the end. So Chris was more in the house that morning, and so she blow dried all of them. And then we did, it was kind of, I don't know if you remember, several years ago at VBS, we did Follow God t-shirts that the kids had. It was basically the same thing, only on a cinch sack. When we were preparing, Andy said, let's try and find something practical and something that went with the lesson. Well, the lesson was the same as I'm getting into Andy's, but the lesson was basically the same as VBS. And so one of them was Jonah, and so it was Follow God.
It was also, I'm just going to add, it was really interesting with the whole photo craft, because we'll talk about this later, but when we were dropping off kids like to their little houses, and it was amazing because they'd go and show their pictures to their parents, and they'd just be so excited because it's definitely a privilege that we get here to be able to have pictures of us that they don't have there. So that was just cool.
The smiles on the moms' faces were just great to see those pictures.
We took the story of Jonah with us, and so we adapted our Jonah VBS here and did that there. And we took the same memory verses that we did there, and we took some of the kids club games and played kids club games with the kids to learn the verses. Anybody want to add anything to that? Or
Yeah, I'll talk a bit about memory verses. So doing memory verses was really stressful because, well, yeah, they were in Spanish, of course, because that only makes sense. So we had to learn the memory verses to teach them and play the kids club style games. So we had to learn how to say it in Spanish. So it was really stressful because for the first day, it was all kind of in a joking thing, but Bethany did her memory verse and messed some stuff up. So Michelle was like, gringa. And I was just like, I'm not going to get called a gringo. So I looked at all over the morning and stuff. And I don't remember if she did, but I think I got it down pretty well.
Yeah, in Honduras, gringo is not a negative term. It's just a term they use for white people, and so that's sort of a common thing. Yeah, it doesn't have the same connotation that we sometimes think of it. How many people can you fit in a Honduran pickup truck? One more.
Our record was 20.
A short bed. We were doing landscaping, Kirk and I looked at his and I go, man, we could put 30 in here.
So after school, a lot of times the kids would walk quite a distance to get there. So when they see Michelle's truck and it's time to go home, everybody wants a ride up the mountain. And so we took a whole bunch of kids back home with us.
It was funny because you could definitely tell. The first day, it was just a few. And then you could tell the next day they told all their friends. And they told their friends. And that's how we got to a high score of 20 people in the truck.
And we had to turn some people away. There was other kids trying to climb in, and we're like, no, you don't have to go that far. You can walk. One of the things we did was we did our retreat. They put on retreats for people with disabilities, and so we were there to sort of be the staff for that. It was neat to see the changes. When we went back in 2012, we kind of brought our own show, whereas now they have organized themselves, and we were just there as the support staff for what they were doing. They had an army of volunteers that were there. Does anybody want to talk about the...
So when they all got there, it's a whole bunch of teenagers, and I looked at Andy and I go, my people, because I was excited to get to hang out with a whole bunch of teenagers, and so it was kind of fun getting to work with the kids at the retreat, but also getting to know some kids my age that live in Honduras, and I've talked to them on Facebook and stuff after we got home, so it's kind of cool getting to know people.
And one of the young volunteers, a young kid, he was 16, Christian, came over up there in the right-hand picture. He adopted me as his abuela, his grandmother. And so he was so sweet, and he stuck by me all the time. We were dancing to some of the songs, and he was really a nice young man.
So one of the customs at the retreat is everybody that's helping out with the retreat, we all have white shirts on like Chris. We're all dressed and ready for him to get there. The bus pulls up, and we are the cheering crowd saying, hola, hello, welcome. And as they get off the bus, one by one, they hug every one of us and are so happy to be there because this is like their summer vacation. I got the impression that this is their one chance to go away from home. And they get to stay overnight. And then when they leave, everybody gets back on the bus, and we all stand out there and wave, adios, see you next year.
I danced a lot. That's me dancing with the girl.
We did songs.
Yeah, we did we have 6 songs? 6 songs. We learned one the morning of, so that was a good one. And we played games. There's all kinds of crazy, wacky games. There's the gummy worm. You had to run up and pull a gummy worm off the clothespin. There's all kinds of water games. We were outside getting wet, and it was kind of cold that day, so it was really cold when you're wet. But there was sponges and water games, and it was all kinds of fun stuff.
I learned that I'm not a good water samurai. We had this game. It was like dodgeball, and they were like balls that kind of soaked up water, and when we put them in a bucket, and you just threw them at each other. But the twist kind of to it was that there was one person that was the samurai, and they sat in a chair and wielded a wiffle ball bat to try to defend themselves, and I got nailed in the face. So I can't wield a wiffle ball bat, apparently.
We made bracelets. The theme was pescadores, which is fishermen, and the idea was fishers of men. And so they made bracelets out of fishing swivels. And one of the things that went on there is we put little fish charms on there, and you guys might remember the bookmarks that several of you helped us put together, and they got one of those on there as well. And through the weekend, they walked through teaching the gospel message in simple points that would be easy to remember with motions, that they could then take those bookmarks, and the idea was you have this little fish charm to remind you, and the bookmark had the main points of the gospel message, and you can now bring this to someone else and give it to someone else, and so you can be a fisher of men as well. And so it was kind of a neat way to connect those things. And Chris
At the closing program, what they did was everybody was given a fish, and they could write the name of the person that they were going to share their bookmark and their charm with. And so I don't know, we have a picture of that per se, but there was a lot of fish already from the retreats that happened. They kind of kept adding to that wall of fish, and it was neat to see all of those names on there, and to go by and to pray for those names.
And while they were doing the outdoor water games, I was fortunate enough to be indoors on that cold day with the moms. The nice thing was this Rocafoam was the same group that had come 4 years ago with their handicapped children to the camp. And so I knew some of the moms, and that was nice, and some of the kids. And so with the moms group, we went up to our house that we had been staying in and cleared out the living room so we could all sit in there. We had probably about 20, 25 moms. And what they did was they shared how hard it is for them as the mother of a handicapped child. And I'll only tell you one quick story. The one mom, and it was in Spanish, so some of it I caught, but then I asked Suyapa, who was sitting by me, and she confirmed. This one mom said her husband put a gun in her hand and tried to make her shoot the child. They don't want to keep handicapped children. They either try to kill them at birth or get rid of them, or the husbands will abandon them. And he kept trying to make her shoot the child, and she was crying, telling this story, and she wouldn't do it, and he kept trying to make her, and finally she had to leave the house with the handicapped child. And another one was abused, and she had to sneak out in the middle of the night, and she had no place to go, no food, no money. So they have a very hard life, and so we sat with them, heard their stories, and then prayed with them. And that's the most rewarding part, I think, for me of the whole trip.
During our free time, we got to play disc golf and soccer. So playing soccer with a whole bunch of Hondurans is super fun, especially because I play soccer. But that was a cool way to get to play with the kids and get to know them during our free time, because it's kind of universal. You only need to know a few words to be able to play soccer with people that know a different language. So it was really cool.
We got to test out the disc golf. It's a practice tee, and actually Bethany and Susan and I got to help do this, there's one at IVCC if you want to have a sample of it, but there's a basket in the middle, and then it's like a spiral around of different bricks where you can then practice putting from different distances. And so when there was free time at the camp that day, we got a chance to get the discs out and show them how to do it. And then a couple of them that were really interested in doing it, then we took them and played a hole with them, which was a lot of fun. It's kind of like a disc golf ran through the whole weekend. It was a way that I found it was a really neat way to interact with people.
So you see this logo everywhere. Where'd the logo come from?
I designed the logo. So it's on Chris's shirt and Dawn's shirt, both. And all the kids at the retreat got one of the white shirts. It has a verse in the back, but it's kind of cool that all the kids from every retreat that Michelle does for the year, all the kids have that shirt. And the bookmarks also have something I designed on it. And so those kids were giving to their friends. So I don't even know how many kids now have something that has something I designed on it. So that was really cool.
My mom, about a year and a half ago, started trying to use up some of my grandma's material and buttons and things like that. And so she got a pattern for a dress you can make out of a pillowcase. And so she started making those and was not knowing what she was going to do with them. And then when she found out that that Alec and I were going to Honduras, she asked if I would want to take some of those. So that is Genevieve, the camp director's daughter, wearing one of the dresses. She had a belt that matched perfect, and so she was really excited about it. The other ones I gave to Suapa, who's a pastor's wife and knows the places where they're best needed. So that's a picture of me that that Sue took for me for my mom with Genevieve with the dress on. And then I brought a game that it was when I started thinking about what I was going to kind of throw in my suitcase, I was thinking of games that you don't need to really interact speaking-wise too terribly much and don't have words. And so that gets harder to find, games like that. So there's a game that my nieces really like that they introduced us to called Bells. And I think during the babysitting time, didn't we play it? Michaela, did we play that game, Bells? I think so. Anyway, so I was playing that there. I brought one game and played it with Genevieve, and Saeed is there too.
So I don't know what it was like when you guys got a phone call from Honduras here, but that's what it looked like on our end. That's where we were at when we were calling you guys. The following Sunday, we did get to go to church. Their church looks a little different than ours. I think it used to be something other than a church. You can try to figure out what it was. But there we are with some of our people there. And do you guys want to comment at all about the church service? Or?
Yeah, they had a band there, and there was this boy. He's like probably 10, and he's an awesome drummer. He's like way better than me. Apparently he's from a family that's more focused on that is a musical family. So he started playing drums at 5 years old.
So I think what he's saying is it's his parents' fault that he's not a better drummer. I think that's what I heard in there. His family is more music.
His mother has no rhythm. One of the things, I don't know, I think sometimes when you work in an area in a church, you sometimes like to observe it in another area. So I was just, so this just kind of blew my mind. I know that you can turn PowerPoints from landscape to portrait, and that's how they had it. They had the monitor, well actually it was projected. So it was projected on the wall and they just turned it to portrait, which was pretty cool, Pastor.
A lot of the elements of the service are the same, including children's church. They have a point where everybody leaves. What was different there is as all the kids go out the doors, all the adults move up close, which was kind of maybe a practice that, we want to incorporate. I'm just saying, it's just there,
We also didn't sing a children's song where they left. But.
We did get out to the park. Did you want to
remember the name of the park? Because I don't know how to say it. Okay. Well, this park has a great big Jesus standing up on top, and it overlooks the whole city. If I could say it, I would. The capital city of, yep, that's it. And there's the city. So it stands up high enough to overlook it. It was a national park. In this park, you walk up to see this statue, and then you can it has little areas you can walk around to. It's not national park like we think of national park. It's just a small area. You don't have hundreds of acres on this park. Do we have a picture of yes, the picture on the lower part with the pickup truck. They even put the military or the policia in that truck, 4 in the back and 4 on the inside. And that's how they drove around the park to make sure that nothing happened. And they're all armed with whatever you can think of. They have it. But yeah, it was a fun day.
One of the things you'll see even in the picture with Chris there, that's not in the park, but you'll see the armed guard there. And it's not uncommon to just see that as you're walking down the street. fully armed security personnel. Police there aren't like the way we think of police. And so companies hire private security firms that are armed. The biggest gun wins. So they come prepared.
Every store is really safe because there's a guy with a shotgun outside. It's like Texas.
And so here we go, last chance. What's something else that you guys would want to share? What was meaningful to you? How'd you see God? Anything else anybody wants to?
Well, Andy wanted us to talk about a biggest surprise. And I thought it was really interesting because we got into Tegucigalpa, we landed there, and the city is kind of shabby, and that's a little generous. So I was really hoping that the camp was going to be really, really nice. So we kept driving up the mountain, because it's pretty high up on the mountain, the camp. And I just kept seeing places, and I was like, is that the camp? I hope it's not the camp. Is that the camp? And it wasn't. And we got to the camp, and the camp is just great. It's so nicely designed. I probably told Andy at least 15 times how nice the house we were staying in was. Like, it was just laid out really well. It was designed really well. And it was just a really beautiful camp.
I think one of the things that surprised me about the camp is who knew that Honduras looks like the North Woods of Wisconsin, the pine forest, the occasional coffee tree or hibiscus or cactus thrown in, but for the most part it did that. It got dark every night at 6:30 and got light, about 6-ish? So that's year round. It gets dark at 6:30. So that was kind of cool. And then to be able to ride in the back of a pickup truck, I think the last pickup truck I rode in was probably late 70s, early 80s, and it was not an old truck at the time. So it was kind of fun to be able to ride in the back of the pickup truck. And one time, just the roads and the driving was crazy. We were going to the park. There was like a cattle drive on the side of the road. I mean, a big, busy road, a highway, and there was a cattle drive going on. About, 25 head and a couple cowboys.
And
Yeah.
you-
But the horses were on their own.
Yeah.
And and in some places in the world they drive on the right side of the road. In other places they drive on the left side of the road. In Honduras they drive in the shade. So it gets a little chaotic sometimes.
Yeah. One more thing about the camp is it kind of reminded me of the forest moon of Endor. So, yep, I would say that.
One of the neatest things was you could go out early in the morning and do devotionals either at the fountain or in the amphitheater. There was lots of quiet space there on our little mountain, so that was nice.
I would say like the thing, this sounds really dumb, but the thing I got out of it the most was kind of like people are people, no matter where you are. Like you expect, I don't know, in my mind, it like just never clicked like I expected. I'd meet all these, I was within a group of teenagers when we were teaching disc golf to the church. And I was expecting them to be like real chill and be like, what is this? Why are we doing this? And we start playing, and then they start like razzing each other and goofing off and acting like normal teenagers. I'm like, discs are literally flying everywhere. You're ducking for cover, all that fun stuff. And it seems strange maybe to me now, but you just don't expect like people are people. They're going to act exactly the same. It's not. There's a culture difference, not a people difference.
It was kind of funny because Andy was saying teenagers are teenagers everywhere. And there was one girl who was just walking up to the T-pad, like looking at her phone. And like it took a while before she put her phone into her pocket and actually threw.
To touch more on what Ben said, at one point during the retreat, we're all sitting there, and the one girl looks at me and goes, selfie? And we took a selfie. So they really are the same everywhere you go.
So people are people, and the Word of God is the Word of God, and the message of the gospel applies there as much as here. And so it was neat to be able to be a part of bringing that in a public school and being able to share the gospel there, and then also to be able to share that then at the retreat as well. And so thank you for supporting us and for praying for us and for being part of our trip down there. And hopefully something you've seen here today might spark an interest in you being a part of that in the future as well. And so